bringing everyone on the journey with you. And this is probably the most important point, because you might be doing all the points that we talked about earlier, but if you're not taking everyone on the process with you, and you're not encouraging that behavior change, that's what sustainability is all about at the end of the day. So there's 3 points here that I think are really important. And the first one is to have a clear plan for success. So I think this kind of links to the earlier point around breaking down that longer term goal into more manageable steps, but it's also around acknowledging that no project or process or idea is ever straightforward and linear. There's always going to be challenges that you come up against, and it's really important to learn from those, test and learn, as we mentioned earlier, because without coming up against these challenges, you're not going to improve, and it's probably more important to come up against those things earlier in the process than further down the line when it could be more of a disaster. So progress over perfection, we always say. It's better to be taking steps forward than to kind of become paralyzed by trying to do everything perfectly right from the off. The second point is around communication, and it's really, really super important to remember to keep communication constant and clear. And I sometimes need to remind myself this. Maybe I'm not the most clear person all the time, but I think this is really important to think about how different people communicate, because not everyone takes in information in the same way. So we do a lot of presentations at DMs quite similar to this one, and I think they work really well because it's kind of ticking off a few different communication styles. You've got the visual learners, which like the pictures on screen and kind of reading information. But then you've also got the kind of audio learners who learn by listening. So by giving this voiceover, that will kind of help certain people take in the information more clearly. And the third point is around bringing people together often. So I think 2 and 3 are really closely linked. It's all around communication styles. And this, I mentioned presentations, but there's other ways that you can communicate. Email, obviously, you can have a group chat, you can have a virtual webinar, you can have a virtual meeting, you can have a in-person meeting. So there's so many different methods of communication that you need to think about, and they'll be most impactful at various points throughout a project. For example, in-person meetings are more often used when there's kind of like a key milestone or like a big decision needs to be made, and it's really important that everyone's kind of in the room and can look each other in the eye when that decision is being agreed upon. And then Jack is going to take us through how this was applied to GenX Napa.
Yeah, so for GenX Napa, this was something that we'd done for the first time. So having that clear plan for success was really, really important. And as Jess said, you can map it all out, but it's not always linear. And that's something that we definitely experienced with GenX Napa. So what was really important to us right from the get-go was to have what we call a new materials development process, which maps out right from identifying the material and identifying it as something that's suitable to go into footwear, all the way through to then designing the product around that material, then for it to go into our supply chain and to our manufacturing partners, for them to build that piece of footwear, then for it to be shipped over to our stores and our distribution centers around the world, so that then it can end up on someone's foot around the world. And that is a very difficult process that involves a lot of different people and a timeline of around about 2 years. So having that mapped out step by step so everyone knows what part of the plan we're on was extremely important. But then to address the next 2 points around communication and bringing people together often together, when we brought a product like Genix Napper to market, it involves so many different teams from across our organizations to work on things together. So that included us as a sustainability team, but also our design team, our product management team, our supply chain team, our marketing team. All of those different people have different jobs, but they also look at the world differently and they look at the product that you're making differently. So making sure that we're clearly communicating amongst each other was extremely important. And we did that in a couple of different ways. The first thing was that we tried to bring people together as often as possible through different groups that we've got around the business. And for us, it was always virtually because you can get people into the room, but the reality is we work with teams in the US and we work with teams in Asia as well a lot. So having everyone in that virtual room together so they could hear each other's opinions was really important. And that changed a lot of things during the process because sometimes one person would say, I've got this fantastic idea. And then someone else would say, yeah, that's a great idea, but actually you have to do it in this way. And that was a really useful process to go through. But then also we have a regular meeting at Dr. Martens, which is called our Sustainability Committee, and that's where we get our leadership team together as well. So including our leaders like our CEO and our COO to look at what we're doing in sustainability and make sure that we're on the right path and that they know what's going on. So we would bring Genix Napper to that specific meeting once every 2 months so that they would be able to give us the correct steer, make sure the whole business is going in the right direction, and really make sure that we're setting ourselves up for success.